Hi, everybody.
Pleasant good
Again,
morning.
good morning and hi,
Morning.
everybody. I'm very happy to have you here. I'm very happy to have our listeners here. We have a very nice topic today, high functioning anxiety. And on top, we will talk a bit of phobias. And yeah, I'm very happy that we can pick up this topic today. We will see whom of our colleagues will come in and not. Kacy should be here the next minutes, and maybe our Indian colleagues won't be able to attend because of connection problems. We will see. So thank you for being here. I would like you to introduce yourselves, and then we start on it.
Pleasant good morning. I start. My name is Veronika Danzer-La. I'm coming here live on from Tobago. I live in Tobago since 18 years now. I'm born in South Germany, in Regensburg, and I'm 50 years old. And I'm the founder and president of the Healing with Horses Foundation and of a business, Being with Horses, where we offer people a wonderful experience with not only horses but also with dogs and cats and goats, out in nature, out in Tobago's beautiful nature. We had a few really interesting programs, especially running throughout COVID, for the frontline workers, for business people, where we offered them a time being with the horses, a time away from the hustle and bustle, which is the program we are running. It's very successful in the West Indies here. We have presently also other stakeholders coming in who would like to learn the Being and Be Healing with Horses program.
Great, great.
Hello, Kacy. She's here now. Wonderful.
Coming.
Mm.
Dennis, continue. Hi, Kacy.
Guten Morgen, guten Morgen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you all.
Mhm.
Good to see you too. So, my name is Dennis Kithinji. I'm a Kenyan. I reside in Kenya. I'm a research consultant and a medical writer. I support research projects across the world. So, um, the topic of phobias and high functioning anxiety is quite within the scope of what I have encountered once in a while, but not in a practitioner perspective, but a research perspective. I hope we'll be able to delve into this topic and help others to grasp one or two things from it that can help them improve their livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Kacy, introduce yourself.
Certainly. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kacy Crystal-Spörer. I'm an American who's been living in Germany for over 40 years. I have an ADHD brain, which I found out about in around 2016. In the meantime, I've become a certified coach for ADHD, and my husband and I have established a center here in Germany, in German, for those adults who work with an ADHD brain. And anxiety is a topic that is very common to ADHD, as most of us have grown up in situations where we just knew that we didn't fit in with the culture. And as a result, this is a topic that is very uh, actual and is something that many, many people have to deal with. So I'm delighted to be part of this discussion this morning.
Thank you all very much. One topic that I would like to stress is a phobia which has been common but went to a very high topic during COVID. This is the anxiety of germs, the phobia of germs. Can somebody say something about it, or do you have something about that, Dennis? in terms of numbers, how it was before and after COVID.
Interesting question. Thank you.
I don't have exact numbers regarding the prevalence of the phobia before and after COVID, but then we would say that cases of phobias generally increased post-COVID. Not only a phobia against germs, but also even these other phobias, because there's correlation. When you have one phobia, there's a likelihood that you will have another phobia. So even phobia for injections, phobia for blood, such instances increased post-COVID.
Interesting. I thought only the fear of germs or the phobia of germs, but yes, I can understand that it goes to injections and blood and sickness on the whole.
Sure.
What I myself experienced with phobias, I wasn't quite fond of spiders or snakes before I moved to Greece. But after I have been bitten by a black widow spider, and after having seen a lot of vipers on my property, and even, these tiny little baby vipers, they look so sweet. And once I had to rescue a viper from being killed by my cats. Just show that little was half-grown viper the way to the garden so that she could escape the cats. Since then, I lost it. I'm comfortable now with the spiders and the snakes. How can that happen?
Marion, do you mean that because of that experience of essentially seeing the viper as a part of life, in essence, and helping it to escape, to continue to live on, that you see yourself somehow as being shielded because you got bitten by a spider, and vipers are also poisonous. So, I mean,
Yes.
how do you
I
explain?
don't know. I can only talk about the experience. I did not like spiders. I was a bit afraid of poisonous spiders. I definitely did not like snakes. I would break for snakes when they crawl along the street, as for any animal.
It's a living creature, but
But
that's
since I saved that viper, I lost my fear of vipers.
Becoming
Perhaps,
the concept of vipers meant that you also were no longer afraid of spiders?
No, I wasn't afraid of spiders after being bitten, maybe because I survived it, and I lost the fear of snakes after rescuing one. Dennis, what did you want to say?
I would say that your experience of moving into an environment where more of those creatures that you had fears for could be equated to exposure therapy, because exposure therapy is most effective when you are exposed to one instance of the extreme of what you fear. So once you come out of that and there's no harm, your subconscious mind comes into believing that there is a way out of this, so there's no need to fear. So as you've said, maybe conceptualized that there is no danger in this by analyzing the outcome after the intense exposure. Yeah.
So interesting. This has been a kind of therapy for me then. Yeah, I believe saving that snake was a kind of therapy. I had to overcome, I had to get out of my comfort zone to save that little one. But I happily did it, and I talked to it, and it looked me into the eyes. It was quite nice.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. I have a similar experience growing up in South Germany and playing around little rivers. And it happened that I fell in one of the small rivers, and I almost drowned. And I remember my father picked me out of that little river. I was quite afraid of going into lakes and going into the ocean after that. And I was also afraid of, the creatures there. And now living so close by the ocean, I moved to Tobago, where we have, we are surrounded by the ocean. It's a very small island, and I don't have that fear anymore. And I don't even, it's just that I don't have that fear anymore. But I do have respect for the ocean. And whenever I go in the ocean, I would ask for permission to enter, which is a very important element for our work as well. I asked for the ocean to support the work. We're going swimming with the horses, and this is a part of therapy we offer. For me, asking for permission is a very important part, because I know that all creatures in the ocean, it's their environment, it is their space, and I enter their space.
Mm.
We have we also have sharks close by. We have, and I know that I can speak with them. I know that they feel the vibration.
Yes, of course. It's a living being.
Okay. I agree that exposure to things that you've been afraid of, and Dennis, I thought that was a really good comment, can help people lose at least the edge of their anxiety, of their fear. Marianne, your original question had to do with germs, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And connecting that with COVID. And I think the experience of what you have said about having had exposure to the situation, i.e., someone who has actually had corona or COVID and lived through it without suffering long COVID. I think that's an important difference. I know that I got used to it. I've I've had corona a couple of times, but it was always a very mild variation. And Veronika, maybe also this thing of learning to take an active part in trusting that where you are is correct has a lot to do with working with anxiety. I think a lot of people who have fears of one thing or another feel that the negative experience can happen to them at any time. And with respect to COVID, because I think if this is part of the topic you want to discuss, is one of them. Having had it a couple of times and not having had any bad experiences of long COVID, I have respect for it. And Veronika, I'm sure you have respect for the sharks and the other jellyfish or whatever it is that you have there that's dangerous. And Marianne, you don't, if you see a snake, it doesn't mean you start sitting down and talking with it. Veronika, the idea of talking with the universe is I understand, but that's an attitudinal effect. Where's our part in the universe? And many people who have anxiety, and I think the anxiety in terms of the vaccines that were used is connected to the anxiety that people have for the germs, since that was the original question, is very related, but it has to do with trust in who you are and whether you believe that you're part of something larger. I think that's probably a very important thing. Veronika, you and Marianne both have a connection to living creatures, and you can have an attitude of people can communicate with animals or not. But the fact is, you both have the sense of being a piece of a puzzle that fits together. And I think people who have fear feel a lack of that connection to I am part of life and I cannot die before my time. I know that's a large part of the fact that I live without fear, because I think for me it has a lot to do with understanding that I am part of something larger. This is my own definition. I'm not church religious, but I do believe that the soul is something that doesn't die, and whether in this life or another, I'm but I feel integrated into life. And I think people who have a lot of anxiety feel that they're out of control and the bad things can happen anytime. There is, as you say, Veronika, you have respect for what's there. I respect Corona and COVID. I do. And I also respect the concept of the vaccinations. I chose to take vaccinations. Marianne chose to not take vaccinations. And yet I have no fear that I'm going to suddenly die because of the vaccinations, but that has to do with the basic fear of being part of something greater. Maybe that's part of the basis of anxiety and fear. In my case, working with people who have ADHD, they don't necessarily feel as though they are a valid part of life because they've always felt different. Now, that's turning the topic a bit, so I'd like to keep it back to the original topic of germs. And it doesn't matter if it's COVID or if it's of going into a hospital and getting one of the resistant bacterias that are running around there, or even catching something at a point of immune resistance that could maim you or could make you die.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
basic trust in life that I think is missing with people who feel a lot of anxiety in general. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say to that. I'm just trying to bring it back to that.
Yeah, yeah. I picked germs only as one part of phobias, just one part. As a consciousness trainer, I always tell people this is just a polarity. Here's anxiety and here's trust. And you can move in between. But if you have total trust, you don't have anxiety of anything.
Oh, I do have a problem there. We need a healthy level of anxiety.
No. Anxiety is a disease. You need a healthy instinct of diagnosing a danger. No, you don't need anxiety. You have to recognize danger.
Okay, I think it's a term of definitions. If we are not aware of what the consequences could be, we put ourselves in a situation that could be dangerous, and this has to do with many, many different things. So
yes, but if you're alert, if you have an instinctive intelligence, you always will diagnose danger.
Well, you see that in hypochondriacs. Everything is
dangerous. A hypochondriac is it has the anxiety disease. This is not. If you only sense danger, you are absolutely calm.
I think
alert and calm. Dennis?
I think what Kacy is talking about, healthy levels of anxiety. I would say that there is a distinction between anxiety, the emotional expression, and anxiety, the diagnosis. At the level of emotional expression, it actually sometimes even improves performance because it gives you the impulse to give results or to perform. So I think that's what she's referring to. But then if you insist on it and if it obsesses you, it can also develop to the anxiety syndrome. And that's where now the high performing anxiety comes in. So yes, it's healthy to be anxious sometimes, but then it should not preoccupy you to extent that you develop the anxiety disorder.
I agree. We have to make a differentiation between people who are ruled by their fear or anxiety or what will happen, and people who have a trust of things. I'm still not going to walk in the dark around any major train station alone, particularly if for whatever reason I've had a bad day and I'm not walking as a purposeful person, but I'm walking as someone who could be a victim. That's why we use our head. I'm not anxious about it, but if I'm in that situation for whatever reason, I need to know I am now in a dangerous situation, whether I'm in the in a garden and there's a snake and I don't know if it's poisonous or not. I'm going to be careful because I'm using here. But if I'm totally scared, I may behave differently. Marianne, with dogs, if you have a basic
Yeah.
of dogs because you had a bad experience and you're young and you see a dog, the children tend to run away, which of course is the absolute wrong thing to do. Because,
Then we have to go back to fight, flight, freeze reactions.
and whether you have control over what you're doing or whether you're instinctively reacting.
So let's get back to perception. When we see a dog,
Okay.
it's way over and way later than our heart realizing there's a dog coming. Your heart sees it or diagnoses the dog before your eyes see it. Once your eyes see it and you have a bad memory, you will have a switch in the thalamus and the amygdala will react. It will send a signal to the what is the organ above the kidneys? The adrenaline glands. And these will call a spike of adrenaline and cortisol. And then you are in a fight, flight, freeze beyond consciousness. It's far beyond. Then you're off track.
That's true. And the animals
At the moment your heart realizes the dog, you have the possibility to be aware if you are trained. Then your instinct via the heart gets the dog, you be alert, you look around, you see the dog, but then you're already prepared and you can breathe and you can skip this reaction and be very aware. And then if you are trained, you know what to do. This is being still, being calm, making contact to the dog instead of running away.
Okay. This can also happen on an epigenetic level also. If your mother or father had that fear as a young child, you can have that also. But it takes understanding. But we're talking in general, we're talking about people who are afraid that bad things are going to happen, anxiety. Yeah.
This is a programming in the hypothalamus and a connection in the amygdala, which can only be overcome by awareness training.
Correct. But if you've had bad experiences, the reaction is the same in your brain. I understand that.
Yeah, you can overcome it with awareness training.
You know, what about people? I'm going to move it back to the human experience. People who have had bad experience with other people and who are anxious about it. Dennis, as I'm sure you're well aware, this is particularly true for women, young women, and men in general. And if you've had a bad experience, you have, let's say, frankly, I have a number of people who have dealt with, it's essentially PTSD. It's very bad experiences that get triggered. And so if a person looks in a certain way, they become afraid. Or if they're in a certain situation, because it triggers all the old memories. We're talking about anxiety, we're talking about fear and the reaction to it. Logic has little to do with it.
No, you can't overcome it by logic. It's not possible.
Cut the reaction with that, but
you have about 1/10 of a second to stop the fight, flight, freeze mechanism. Once you're in, it's gone. It's over.
That's the training with.
But to stop this reaction, it's about the 10th of a second.
Okay.
And this is keeping your heart rate variability harmonious, sending a signal to the brain. Whatever you see, it's no dinosaur. It's not going to kill you. And then you have the possibility of consciously getting into contact, whatever it is. But it's a lot of training. This is why all the Buddhist people train so many years.
Yeah. This is also why a lot of your work has to do with breath and with
the
central part in your way. Dennis, I don't know, is this part of what you, I know that you work with people who have had very bad experiences often, whether they're children or adults or people in puberty. How do you work with this? As Marianne said, the reaction is happening in this mass of fat and water that we have in here, but often the anxiety is based in something that happened in a real sense. How do you work with it with people who suffer from, oh my God, it's going to happen again. Oh my God, the world is unsure and my place in it is not sure. Do you work with breath? Do you work with meditation? I don't know, because talking here, it's not just describing what happens. We need to also be talking about what are things you can do to work with it and in different cultures. Veronika, I'm sure you have, I mean, I worked with children who were afraid of animals when I was young. I worked with blind children learning to ride to help them trust. So what can we do to help people who suffer from anxiety? That's the main thing that we need to be talking about. What can we do? Dennis, what do you do? How do you guys work with it?
First, we need to understand the genesis or what brings these fears or the phobia. Then you address those causes, and that's how people get helped. So, for instance, I would say, or I would generalize that uh, these phobias, most of them actually are due to past experience. It may not be past experience of this particular person, but even their parents, because there's a genetic aspect in it. So you may be afraid of something because your parent encountered it in their lifetime and therefore lived fearing it. And therefore they pass it to you through their genetics and even through environmental exposure. By them fearing it while you are around or having that phobia in your presence, you also develop it. So there's that aspect. Then research also shows that the onset of most phobias is in childhood between the ages of 8 to 14. So that shows that uh, this child may have been exposed to, for example, let's say an insect bite when they were not conscious of this is an insect bite. So, but then their subconscious mind knows that it's an insect bite. So they live fearing the insect bite. But now, if you ask them whether they had a previous exposure of an insect bite, they say no, yet it was there initially. So about addressing it, one is the exposure for things that are not harmful. Let's say, for example, fear of height. When you're exposed to those heights, but then you are reassured that your safety is guaranteed by, for example, being shown the structures that are there to ensure that you cannot fall, that can reorient you into believing that yes, I can go up there and I can still be safe. So I think it's mainly mental, but then yes, there's that biological aspect where you've indicated about the changes in hormonal levels, especially cortisol. Those changes occur to manifest the fears. So that manifestation may even lead to worse symptoms. For example, you might see someone vomiting just because they entered into a bus, and it's because entering the bus triggered their fear of getting an accident, perhaps because they had another accident earlier or their parent died due to an accident. So these things interconnect at various points. And so, for example, you cannot address the problem of this person vomiting by giving them a drug to stop the vomiting. The solution is to address that fear of an accident when they get into a bus. So I think there are various areas of interventions that can be leveraged to help them.
Okay, but that's a differentiation between PTSD, between a trigger mechanism that has happened through bad experience and a general feeling of anxiety. I think we need to really talk about what are we really talking about here? And what, so that people who are listening to this can get something that might help them. What
let me just say, anxiety is no natural human state. As a natural human, without any bad experience, you would not really experience anxiety. Maybe only if you're in total danger and being attacked by something which you realize, oh, this is life-threatening.
Anxiety is looking forward to being unsafe, to feeling like bad things will happen, but not having concrete thing. Having fear is one thing, and having PTSD is another. But
yeah.
Small children,
Kacy,
some are
what I was saying is a natural human state is being courageous, not being full of anxiety and fearful. The natural human state is courageous, creative. It is the ego and the overthinking that will put you in all these anxiety levels. And this is why the consciousness training is so effective, because it gets you out of the ego, and that's what gets you out of anxiety. But when you ask, what do you do usually if somebody really suffers from anxiety? I help them realize the triggers.
Yeah.
I have them meditate each day. I have them doing breathing techniques each day, many times. And I have them cleaning and making their things in order.
Yes. It gives a sense of control. That's what you're doing. You're giving them a sense of control back.
Not only control, it's simplifying. And by simplifying things and keeping the mind of putting things in order, it's a bit miraculous, but the anxiety goes.
True, but you can't do that with PTSD. You have to be able to cut the reaction with that. So we need to know what we're talking about here. I'm still swimming.
PTSD is we have another live talk. We concentrate on PTSD.
Okay.
But today our topic is phobias and the high functioning anxiety. And even with PTSD, what you do is behavioral. You work with behavioral techniques, and you work with awareness techniques. You can do the tapping and things like that, but in my opinion, consciousness training is the most effective.
It's the combination of everything. I agree. If we're talking about phobias, it's still different than talking about anxiety. Anxiety is often an unreasonable fear. Yeah. We're afraid of snakes, but we don't live anywhere where there are any poisonous ones. We're afraid of men, but we never get into a relationship because we're afraid that we'll be hurt. That happens a lot with women. I assume with men, it happens exactly with women too. We're also dangerous. But I want to have a bit more focus. You started out talking about germs and about COVID. Do we need to be
just as an example, meaningless example?
Okay, it's just an example.
Just an example.
Veronika, what kind of anxiety do you work with? I assume working with animals that you often have children or adults who are afraid, and working with the animals, you're working to bring them back in connection. What is your experience?
So it's animal assisted therapy, which, we have quite a lot of people here in Trinidad and Tobago who are actually terrified of animals. Then I come here now. We come here in the Healing with Horses program with our animal assisted therapy, which it took us a good while, to open up people's mindset because it was so contraire. And what you say, Dennis, about generations, I don't know if you experience that also in Africa, that the African descent are more afraid of dogs, cats, and horses. Is that the case?
That's the case, especially for dogs and cats. But for horses, we might not say that because most people have not even encountered an horse in their lifetime here.
Yes.
Only a few families have encounter with horses. So we might not describe their fears about that. But for dogs, and I think that comes from their experiences in the use of dogs to maintain safety in their homesteads. Because now any stranger that comes into this family uh, should be attacked by this dog. That's how the dog is trained. Here, mostly people don't keep dogs as pets, so they are not likely to be friendly to other people besides the owner. So, if then it appears that, for example, in your childhood you visited a family, then you got a dog bite, most likely you will have phobia for dogs throughout your life, unless an intervention comes in to help you overcome it.
Yes, it's the same thing here in the West Indies. You know, dogs are kept in cages or on leashes in the family homes, or there are some stray dogs who would be, you know, they are running around and they are not really friendly to people. And of course, and then there are people who see the dog and they have this feeling of anxiety, and then the fear is actually a magnet. Magnet. The dog starts even to bark more, and the dog starts yeah, to feel that anxiety. And this is what the ball brings then into role. This is where the explosion of anxiety then takes place.
They actually smell it, Veronika.
They smell it, yeah.
They
That is
smell the adrenaline.
They're chemical changes. That was what you were saying, Marianne. The animals know who is afraid and who is not, and they react accordingly.
Yeah, because if you smell like adrenaline, for an animal, you're a possible danger because you're in a fight, flight, freeze mechanism, and they don't know whether you are going to flee or whether you're going to fight. Therefore, attack is the best defense. You're going to attack. This is why any animal trainer trains the heart rate variability, trains into not getting into the fight, flight, freeze mechanisms, trains to have a calm energy so that they don't make the animals afraid.
I agree, 100%. And
because they smell it, and your energy field totally changes.
Yeah.
Veronika, when I was as a very young person working with, there were children who were blind and, of course, afraid of a lot of things. It had to do with increasing their trust in themselves and with life. I don't know if you're primarily working with people who are afraid of animals and want to get over it, or if you're working through the animals with helping them to establish more trust in life itself. Because I think what's important is most people, or many people, suffer from anxiety about life, about what could happen, no matter what it is. And what is your focus in working with animals as therapy animals, working with people? Because we're talking about people here.
So I think the word courageous, I really like the word courageous, which Marianne came up with. courageous, calm, and connected,
Yeah.
and grounded. Yeah, these are, so we are working with, we have the park with a lot of dogs, with a lot of cats, and with a lot of horses. And we have daily visitors coming who are courageous about that. They come, but they have fears. They bring a big bag of fears and maybe anxiety and also phobia, because maybe they never met a horse. It's like in Africa, we don't really have horses around here. So before we came in the village, there was no horse. So people come, a horse is a big animal, and a horse can actually kick and bite. That's what they heard. So they're coming into that safe space, the park, where the horse is content and the horse is calm. And then we are just walking around and we are watching the animals from a far distance. And then we are recognizing the beauty of the animals. So I'm guiding them. I'm guiding them into that space where I don't see the horse as an animal which kicks and bites. I'm guiding them into that space where they see the animal as a magnificent, majestic, beautiful creature which can give us energy. But I have to open up for that. And when I'm full of anxiety and I have a phobia, then I'm closed because of the fear. Fear closes me, and my heart would not be open. So it is the awareness training, which we are also working with, number one, with breath, with being aware of I need to connect with myself first before I actually can connect with another being, can connect with another human, can connect with another soul, can connect with nature. Does it make sense?
For me, definitely, because it comes back to the heart rate variability. A horse has a harmonious heart rate variability. If it's not beaten or something, yeah? It is just in a normal phase, it has a coherent heart rate variability. And the human that approaches it open-minded gets coherent as well. And then there's a possibility of connection. And once you have a connection, you see that the other species is not dangerous. Just like with me and the viper.
Dennis, what do you feel that the people that you're working with have the most issues with in terms of anxiety? Is it fear of other humans? We are the most dangerous animal on the world, in the entire earth. Is it fear of life itself? Is it fear of looking at new ways of trying to connect yourself? What kind of fears are you working with? Are they based in reality? And does anxiety help? Does anxiety hold people back? What is your experience? It's very different from ours.
I would say my experience is to do with the research participants who are patients and other times clinical providers. I find, or rather when doing especially qualitative data collection, because that's when people get opportunities to express themselves, that's when some of these things come out. For example, you find that a doctor maybe or a nurse has fear of something because they have encountered it in their line of work. So they feel that, for example, because I handled a patient who needed, let's say, this kind of intervention. Now, when I'm handling another patient who needs the same intervention, they are likely to die because the other one died. So there's that fear that comes in. So I would say that phobia is specific to individuals based on maybe their past experiences, and we cannot really generalize. But statistics indicate that, for example, in terms of gender, most phobias are more common among women compared to men. And in terms of age, the young adults have more phobias compared to older adults. So there's no specific you cannot conclude that people are generally having phobia for this particular thing, but there are variety. For example, for students, there is the examination phobia. Actually, it's almost being included in the DSM criteria, the diagnostic criteria. It's almost getting included there. So whereas you might not find that in someone that is working because they are not likely to encounter exams in their lifetime. So phobia are diverse as people are diverse in their lines of work and activities.
When you say phobia, are you speaking of fear of failure? Which, if you're talking about students or people who have something specific that they're doing?
That's specifically for exam phobia, because there are various types of phobia. For example, there is that exam phobia, there is animal phobia, there is blood injections and injury phobia. There are various types of phobia, and people have them mostly because of exposure in their lifetime, a threatening exposure. And I think that's why you are seeking clarity on whether we are handling PTSD, because PTSD almost follows a similar pattern, because it's also based on a previous trauma. But now for PTSD, it's trauma. But then for phobia, it's just an experience that was threatening. It might not have been dangerous, but it might have threatened you. So you fear it, you develop phobia for that item or that experience. Actually, there's even situational phobia, where, for example, someone fears, for example, getting on stage fright. They have phobia for studying in a crowd. Others have even phobia for interacting with individuals. They can speak eloquently and be very confident in a crowd, but when you go to talk to them as individuals, they get frightened because maybe in their past there's someone who cornered them at their personal level. So it gives them a sense of incompleteness or gaps at the one-on-one level, yet they are very confident when addressing many people. So phobia comes in various forms, and that's why it's important to understand the genesis of it, so that you may be able to help the person that is experiencing it.
And what do you do in working with the people you work with? Once again, I'm always interested in what can we do? I know that Marianne works a lot with breath, with meditation, with clearing. Veronika, you're working with having them have connection to animals, which can give them a trust. Dennis, how do you work with that with people who are suffering from, and you're making an equivalent between phobia and anxiety. I don't know that I agree with that, but I accept that you're using it in that sense. What do you do with them? How do you work with them? How can you help them?
I would differentiate phobia from anxiety, because anxiety is essentially fear of the unknown, but then phobia is fear of something specific.
Okay, if that's the way you define it, that's fine. Thank you. But how do
Yes,
you?
so how I help them? from a research perspective, the only thing I can do is get the information from them, then refer them to a counselor if I identify that they have a problem that needs psychological help. So I refer them to a counselor in that facility where they are seeking healthcare services. Mostly I encounter it when I'm conducting studies amongst HIV positive patients. Some of them were raped, or some of them even experienced rape in their settings, because you find that most of them live in places that are not safe. So when, for example, they go to drink alcohol in those alcohol dens, they sometimes get raped. So when such a person, for example, hears of a certain experience that they can relate to that rape encounter, it triggers emotions that they even express when you're discussing something very different. So when you encounter something like that, since I'm not in a position to help them, what I do is refer them to a counselor.
Very good. So what you're saying is when you recognize that, you support them in coming to people who work with professionally with fear. That's
Sure.
fantastic. You say, look, please recognize this is an issue and that there is help to be had, and I will help you get someone. Whereas Marianne works with those people, as does Veronika, and to a certain degree, so do I. Although I differentiate between how deep the let's say fear, anxiety is, whether it is stopping the person from doing something, and whether there are situations where medical help, medicine can be used to support this also. But I'm a firm believer in also what Marianne was talking about of helping people to come to their middle to develop a trust, because it's a trust in life. If I do have people that I've worked with that have had rape happen in their past, and the question is whether they have been able to go on or whether they are incapable of allowing a relationship to deepen. You know, it's a combination of things, but you need to work with people who are willing to deal with these difficult topics. But the main thing that we as human beings have to work with is fear of each other in one way or another, of failure, that means how other people see us, and of life itself. A lot of people have had enough little bad experiences that it stops them from moving on. I'm always interested, what can we do? Marianne, do you want to talk a little bit more about the kind of programs that you do that actually are there to help?
Yeah, I can only tell you an experience that, people come to my academy for consciousness training. And we are not talking about their anxieties. We are talking about belief systems. We are talking about manipulation. We are talking about daily experiences and how can you handle them differently. We are talking about the fight, flight, freeze mechanisms. We are talking about triggers, but we are not addressing or rarely addressing that personal anxiety. And still, after about 1.5, latest 2 years, people suddenly say the anxiety is gone. It's only because they trained to consciously look at it.
So it's a training essentially in trust in life.
It's a training in trust in life, and it's a training, as I said before, you can be in the circle of fight, flight, freeze mechanisms, and then you are a victim. Or you can train to get out of it, to not have that happen. And therefore, you have to train your perception, your heart rate variability, the heart brain connection. And if you do that continuously, you will see that anxiety can't get you anymore.
Okay, so in developing the heart brain connection,
Yeah.
the general attitude toward fear, anxiety will also be lightened. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yes, if you manage to be in a coherent heart rate variability all the time. Anxiety is none of your experiences. It doesn't happen. And if it gets triggered by something, it will subside within minutes.
Veronika, how do you work with this? You say it's not only the animals themselves, but you also work with people on breath, on coming to their middle. How do you do it? I'm always interested in looking, what can we do with this, not just describing them.
Yeah. So it's really a hands-on experience by us. At the end, people would like to feel. It has a lot to do also with touch and putting things in order. So the fine and gross motor skills, of course, we are also, grooming and touching the animals. And there is this one very simple technique, one hand on the horse, one hand on the brush. And while I'm brushing, I'm breathing and I'm feeling the horse, the softness.
So consciousness.
It's consciousness. Yes, it's consciousness.
And exposing what Dennis said in the beginning of the talk, it's the conscious exposing to things.
Actually, we would summarize it into two. One, the perception that you talked about, because perception makes someone understand the reality about the phobia they have, so that they don't fear or visualize a threat that is inexistent. For example, if they have phobia for dogs, when they develop the right perception that a dog can be around you but not bite you, that will help. Then another thing is giving them a sense of control. So, for example, what Marianne is talking about, that cognitive training or consciousness, developing consciousness, that yes, I might be in an environment with a threatening dog that can bite, but then there's something I can do not to be attacked by the dog. So when somebody perceives something rightly, then they have a sense of control of their surrounding when they are in that environment. That can help them address the phobia.
Thank you. What about anxiety about people? That's the main thing that happens.
Humans are just apex predators, like lions, like eagles, like cats.
Yeah.
Don't look at them differently. Just look at them as a possibility of love or danger. And your instinct will tell you, because your instinct will realize is the heart rate variability of the other person, incoherent or coherent. You sense it over a distance of 10 meters.
So developing a consciousness of that will help people's anxiety with fears of other people.
Yeah, and you even can influence it. So, for instance, one of my pupils, very good in coherence training, she came to a gas station where two young men were in a fight and they were starting to take weapons. And she was very afraid of them attacking each other or even attacking her. And then she remembered she can do consciousness training. And she just stood there at the gas station, getting herself in a coherent state, and then just energetically sending the coherent state to those two persons. And they began to look at her, drop the weapons, and began to talk over the issue.
Respect.
Respect. And the better you are in these things, the better you can influence. And this is why, these great Buddhas and Lamas were so amazing, because they could influence many, many people in their surroundings. Because they were so stable in this state. And if you meet a very coherent person, you don't forget it. if you meet, let's say, a Buddhist or a shaman or somebody who has a lifelong experience in this training, you suddenly feel so comfortable in their presence. It's an amazing experience. And animals can give you that as well. Trained animals, especially traumatized animals who are trained to trust again and then meet humans which are unstable. That's an amazing experience. Veronika knows that as well.
Yeah.
I have a traumatized horse that heals and then meets traumatized people because it recognizes the trauma, it tries to help, and it's exactly doing that, trying to transfer the coherence, trying to transfer the harmony of the heart-brain connection.
Yeah.
And if you feel that, it's like the hot and cold stone mechanism. The cold stone gets warm. The unharmonious person gets harmonious.
We had
But you
such
have to experience it to know it.
Yeah. Can I just say something? For instance, yesterday we had such a beautiful experience. It was Autism Awareness Day here by us, a big festival. And in Trinidad and Tobago, everybody likes to celebrate everything very loud, with loud speakers and with loud drums. And they ask us to have a booth there. And it was set up by the Autism Tobago group, which has about 200 members. They asked us to come and bring some horses. And I walked in there with one of the ex-racehorses who was, in their life before traumatized, and who decided he did not want to race anymore. He did not want to go in the starting gate anymore, who became a big rebel, and they discharged him, and we adopted him, and he's living by us now since 2018. And it touched my heart yesterday that he was so calm, standing his ground in that big festival place where it was so noisy, full of people who are also, maybe never met a horse before, but he knows his purpose now. And well, I'm his partner. I was his partner guiding him, and I was always in that state of coherent being calm, because if I don't have that calmness, the horse would not have that calmness. And Kacy and Anne-Marie, of course, you know about that. It is so powerful. And we were walking through this big crowd of people, loud music, but we were in that bubble and nothing could disturb it. It was such a beautiful experience again. And then on top of that, meeting children on the autism spectrum who were first time exposed to the horse, and who were first time, allowed to maybe sit on that horse and touch the horse. He was that light and that beam in his new purpose. And I know that the animals also know about that. They just, authentically live it. Yeah, it is so important to be in that. And automatically I would fall into that breath work. I would fall into that calm state, and we can control ourselves and our environment with that. Kacy, you need to try that.
I do. I work with that.
I invite you for a holiday to come to me. It is so powerful. It is so powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you. I am also one who has the connection to animals and have worked with horses also, as in that sense. I was quite a bit younger, dogs, cats, etc. Once again, my primary thing, because of the people I work with, is they are fearful of life, of making mistakes. And through many of the techniques that I have also been speaking with Marianne about for years now, of coming to your middle, of coming to using the breath, of becoming more conscious of yourself as your role in life. Because with the people I work with, they're all adults, but they're, let's say, early 20s on up to however. And the fear and anxiety that rules them is that of being insufficient. It's not necessarily a phobia about snakes or dogs or animals or anything like that. It's
Let's go to the high functioning anxiety now, because I think your clients are more suffering from that.
Exactly.
And maybe you don't meet them with the anxiety in their eyes, but you meet them saying, I need to be a perfectionist. I need to have control over everything. I need to make sure that I don't make a mistake.
I mean, I often have people who say, if as I speak with them about it, and I use a lot of what I've learned from Marianne also in working with them, but they say, yes, but I am afraid. Yes, but I am afraid. And that's where the anxiety comes in. And it's because the first step is to accept yourself and your place in the world. And if they can't accept themselves, they always fear the judgment of others. If they can't see themselves with love and with almost an awe of what is potential in each of us as human beings, if they can't see that that's possible, they take the judgment of other people as the way they see themselves. And it's fearful. We do get judged by other people, and that brings up the anxiety that I tend to work with my clients.
Yes, what I'm teaching them is that you can live in one of two worlds. You can live in a world of violence and bow to the concept of violence, or you can live in a world of peace, which begins with inner peace. And judging people, thinking about what other people say about you, and thinking what other people will judge, this is the first step into violence. So what I train them is skip that step. And I will remind them in every sentence, no, we are not judging. You can observe. You can train your perception, but you're not allowed to. And this is a different mindset.
It takes
You only can train that mindset.
For that, your fear has to be low enough that you can choose that. It's a question of choice. Dana?
Everything is a question of choice.
It's true.
Living in violence or peace is a question of choice.
No, absolutely. In a world of violence, you can choose that path. You may still be subject to violence. If you live in an area where there is a lot of violence, whether it's around a train station in Europe or anywhere in the world, or whether it's in a country that has religious or racial conflicts going on, often you live in a world of violence. And it's a choice as to how you choose to live your individual life. I agree. But the original
yes, and still,
have to deal with anxiety. And how do you help people make that choice to be secure within themselves? Because the world is not secure. Sorry, it's not. Dennis, I don't
that's
know.
a point of view to view the world as not secure. But you know, we are all creating our reality. What is inside is what you will meet outside. And let me give you an example. I did forget my purse, my car keys, and my phone, my cell phone, on the toilet at an event. Very, very big event with thousands of people. The usual thing is you get robbed. Just somebody will take it. The person who did take it looked at me for half an hour, tried to find me on that event, gave it to me and said, don't do that again. So if you don't have a resonance field of robbing, you can't get robbed. This is my trust in life, my trust in the divine. If you have fear of violence, there must be a point of violence in yourself. If you can detect that point and heal that point, you won't meet violence again.
Dennis, how do you see all that? How do you react to what she's saying?
I would say that from the literal psychology that I've learned, she's right in terms of most times what actually happens in our life is what we are expecting, not what we deserve, but mostly what we are expecting. So, for example, if using the context of getting robbed, if we are constantly fearing getting robbed, it means we are expecting to get robbed. So eventually we will get robbed. So that's why the way to address this high functioning anxiety is to help people get in control of their expectations. So one, by ensuring that you're the one setting your expectations, not based on what others believe as right or not based on the judgment of others, but what you perceive as right for you. So that will help you avoid the self-evaluations to see whether you match the criteria set by others, but rather to focus on the moment and the best you can get out of it.
I'm even worse, Dennis. In my academy, people are not allowed to have expectations.
How do you work with that?
When we talk, we talk of everyday experiences, and when they say, I have the expectation of, then they get stopped and said, we do not do expectations. What can you do else?
So you stop them from thinking ahead in fear.
In expectation, expectations create disappointments. Not only fear, mostly they create disappointments. If you don't want to have a disappointment, don't have an expectation. And it's a very hard, this is really hard, living a life without expectations.
That's a topic.
You have to be open to everything then. But I train them not to have expectations. And maybe this is one point why they can drop the anxiety levels.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, how do we move people from having the victim mentality of being expecting the worst? Okay, I'm connecting it to that. How do we move them from that to a place of, once again, it goes back to inner trust and how you work with the world, what you put out, and that whether that's with dogs or with people, it's the same thing.
It's the same in my academy. They are not allowed to be victims. They are thrown back to self-responsibility the very instant, and they are asked, you can look at this as a victim, but you're not allowed to do this in the academy. If you go back taking self-responsibility, how would it be then? And then they can describe how their position would be then. And then they are asked in the next possibility in life to try to act like that, to be self-responsible. And within time, they get it.
Okay, so
actually, it's in the academy is a lot about stop it.
Yeah. Sometimes I think you have to say stop because people get into their fear. They're used to it, and they're used to sharing that.
And that they dramatize it, and in the academy, you're not allowed to dramatize.
Dennis, what kind of fears do most of your clients have to work with? Very concretely, definitely not a fear of horses, but what are basic fears that you are constantly hearing or becoming aware with in working with the people that you work with?
We can't hear you. Your mic is muted.
Mic on, please.
Oh, sorry for that.
No
I'm
problem.
saying that I presuppose that is to do with the high functioning anxiety. And what I would say is that I help clients deliver results because I'm a research consultant. And sometimes these clients have deadlines with the organizations. They have outcome measures that they were afraid that they would not meet themselves, hence they contracted me to meet for themselves. Therefore, you find that even though they have given you the work and they know you can do the job, they are constantly calling you to find out the progress. They want to control the process, yet they already added it over to you because of that fear that it might not emerge well. So I actually get that a lot. But what I've learned is to reassure the clients, to reassure them that if I didn't know that I would handle it, I wouldn't accept it. So they should believe that as long as I accepted it, it means I'm in control and therefore I would deliver for them. And that somehow reassures them. And especially after we deliver the first project, then in subsequent projects, they usually don't trouble me as much as the initial one. So it means if you reassure them the first time, then when they get into that context or that situation that would have triggered that anxiety, and they managed to go they managed to go through that process without the anxiety in all the other occasions, they won't have that problem.
So the fear has been one of being seen as being insufficient, of possibly losing the project, and through your helping them to understand that you will let them know if it's not working, and other than that, they need to trust the process. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Helping them to move into trust through having been seen as being capable.
Sure.
Okay.
Because most of them contract me after they have been doing a project. They were given grant funding. They have been doing a project. Then at the tail end, they realized that they have some funding and they were supposed to utilize all these funds in the research work, but then they have some remaining funds and they also have some objectives that have not been met, yet the deadline is only a few days to come, and they have other responsibilities in the organizations. So that brings in the fear that I might not perform in this, and therefore I might not get another grant. And so even when they give you that assignment, they still fear that you might be in the same situation as they are, so you might not help them deliver, and therefore the same problem that they anticipated becomes or materializes. So that reassurance, I think, is the primary solution.
Okay. So your primary work is with organizations, setting up projects, working with funding, and the anxiety that the people who are proposing the projects is one that you can deal with on a reality-based arena. Is that correct? You're not working with individuals who are not able to get ahead with themselves. It's more project-based, finance-based, and encouraging people to develop solid projects that can be funded. So you're helping them to develop things in a healthy way. Is that correct? It's project oriented, finance
Come
oriented.
again?
That you're not working so much with individuals, but you're working with people who are developing projects that have value and need funding. Is that correct? Am I understanding you correctly?
Oh yeah, as I said, my work is in research.
Yes.
And not in mental health research specifically.
Okay.
So, but in helping these clients with their research projects, I encounter, or rather, I hear of their phobias.
Yes.
I decipher their high functioning anxiety. So that's where, or that's the basis upon which I'm describing these experiences. It's not that they come to me for therapeutic interventions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand. Thank you. I think I had a misunderstanding on that. I thought you were also working with individuals. So
no, Dennis is our researcher.
Viable projects are crucial, obviously. But of course, each project is developed by a person at the beginning. It's somebody's dream. So
actually, even when doing those projects, it's a person that assigns you. A person, for example, is the PI or the principal investigator, and they were perhaps not able to accomplish all the objectives, and the deadline is approaching, so they need to hire a consultant that will help them fast track the achievement of the objectives. So that's where you find those anxieties coming in the principal investigator, because the track record of finishing the initial project determines how they will get funded for the subsequent project. So that's where I'm able to help them through supporting their projects to avoid these anxieties or to manage them.
That's where, if you have someone who has the vision of your project, who has a brain that is a bit different, ADHD, that's great. But don't have them be the person who has to get the report in on time. You need other people. You have to look for people with other strengths. It's unfortunately one of the problems with ADHD, that things don't get in on time. We have a great difficulty with that.
I think that we meet much more high functioning anxiety in solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and academics than anywhere else.
Yeah. And one thing about ADHD is that we often jump into things impulsively. Impulsivity is part of the way our brains work. And so you have many people who have visions and jump into them, but can't turn them into reality because they don't understand that we have different roles in life. I have the vision for what the projects that I'm working on, but I need support in concretely getting them done, or else they'll fail because I won't get it done at the time it needs to be done, or the details won't be finished. And there's because I understand that, I get help, but a lot of people don't. And a lot of good projects fail because they don't understand that we need people with different qualities. But we're getting off the topic of anxiety, so.
No, you're not getting off the topic, because what you're stating is very important, that people with high functioning anxiety know that they are not able to do projects on their own. They know that they need to have a team, and they know that they need to be a team player and look for others that are specialized in other topics and complement them.
Exactly.
And so if you're a person who has high functioning anxiety, it is very good to focus on your potential, and it's very good to see what is not your potential, and then go and be a team player.
That's correct.
And actually, one way you can do it is breaking down the project into various aspects. Then instead of showing the entire scope to them, you help them focus on each aspect at a time so that when the first aspect succeeds, it improves their confidence in accomplishing the second aspect. So that because actually high functioning anxiety occurs when someone feels that this thing is in my hands, but I don't have the capacity to manage it or to accomplish it. So, but when you break it down into those aspects, and when each milestone is achieved bit by bit, it will become simpler to them so that they don't get to stagnation, because this high functioning anxiety can sometimes get you stagnated by um, we would say like what a writer experiences sometimes. You get somewhere and you can't move beyond there, you get stuck, you try to think, but you entirely get stuck. So, but when you break down the project into those various components, it becomes easy to flow.
Yes, it's the white page syndrome.
I mean, Veronika, you had the vision of establishing what you now have, of bringing horses in as amazing therapy animals to an area that had no concept of it. But if you had not been able to have other people who can also help you with setting up the finances, with doing the day-to-day running, I don't know how many horses you have, but once you get more than about 10 horses, you can't take care of them all yourself. You need other people. So it has to do with your having brought to your vision from your heart, having brought other people who want to be part of that vision.
Yes, absolutely. It's really about collaborating. I think all of us,
which is exactly the same as what Dennis is talking about.
We are great. We established something great. Dennis, you're doing fantastic work because you also know it is one step at a time, and it is breaking it down. I mean, this topic which we are speaking about today it is on the topic. I can feel it on my daily basis. There are so many people who are actually right now they are at the edge, and know that we all feel it. And I feel it also on my own, in my own organization, my own business, that breaking things down, like you say, Dennis, and asking for help and remembering that we don't have to do it alone, it is so important. And I think this is one of the most important remedies we can give to anybody who has problems with high functioning anxiety.
You mean becoming a part of something?
That we are here, living on this planet Earth, not alone. We don't have to carry it alone. And that we are unique, wonderful human beings, that we have to believe in ourselves, that we have to be open to the good, to the goodness. I mean, I break things down in something very simple, because everybody who has problems with phobia, they are not grounded. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Definitely. I'm just thinking of the volunteer I have here now. It's a girl from Norway, and she definitely has high functioning anxiety. Mm-hmm. And what happened? The first day she was here, 3 dogs ran off. 1 cat ran off. She didn't know what to do on the second day. We wanted to go shopping. That means the 3 dogs that are prone to run behind the car have to be in the kennel. 2 of them were gone. She couldn't find them.
Yeah.
The animals are training her. She has to let go or she gets crazy. 2 possibilities. And then I said, well, you have 1 dog in the kennel. I will drive the car back. We will see whether dogs come running or not. No dog come running. And I said, well, let's have a coffee now. Then we go shopping. And then when we are back, we will see what the situation is. And what was? The 2 dogs that have run away, when we came back, they came running towards the car, greeting us. This is what a high-functioning anxiety person has to learn is let go. Take your mind off it. Think something else.
Actually,
Dennis?
there is need actually to help them concentrate on the moment. For example, if you are doing shopping, focus on the shopping. Forget about the 2 dogs that disappeared an hour ago. If you are drinking coffee, focus on the coffee. When you focus on the moment, that fear of not meeting expectations or of not achieving something doesn't disturb you as much.
Yes, and then the animals have a chance to come back. The cat who took off is back already. After 2 days she came.
Yeah.
But the animals are very hard teachers, you know.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah, if you go to a horse in that feeling, in that state of mind of, then the horse wants to run away or doesn't want to be with you.
Or will make fun of you. If it's a humorous horse, it will just make fun of you. Playing tricks around.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I had to walk a horse without leash. Only 1 thought away and the horse was gone. You have to concentrate on the horse every single split second. The horse will know everything.
That's what Dennis said. When you walk, walk.
Yeah.
When you do something, do it. It's very, goes back to the beginnings of time and the early philosophers.
Yeah.
Center, focus, breath, energy together.
Sure.
But still, people who get triggered into fear, I still wish we had better ways of working with that. The beginning.
If you get triggered, identify the trigger.
Yeah.
If you identify the trigger, identify the first thought that comes with the trigger. Identify the first feeling that comes with the trigger. Don't confuse thinking and feeling.
That's true.
Then sense where the anxiety is in the body and how it feels like. Then remember what you always do when that trigger happens. Maybe phone rings, mother-in-law is on the phone, you have a talk, first thing, go to the fridge, take some chocolate.
Yeah.
Then you can ask yourself, is this a stress reaction? And then you can say, yes, it's a flight mechanism. And then you can ask yourself, okay, next time mother-in-law calls, what am I going to do? And maybe then you will realize, I will take control of the topics we talk about. And if she touches topics I don't want to talk about, I will tell her I don't want to talk about that. Please. But you take control on the conversation. And then you don't need the chocolate, you don't need to go in a flight mechanism. And next time after, you are not afraid of mother-in-law calling.
It's
that
still
you have to split it up, like Dennis said. Not look at the Mount Everest. Look at the first thought, the first feeling. Where is it in the body? What do you usually do? And then get another idea of what you can do before she's on the phone next.
It's a process, though. It's a process of consciousness training. It's possibly what we are talking about, of coming back to your center and reminding yourself that how we present ourselves to the world affects how the world works with us, whether it's the mother-in-law or a dark alley or a dog or whatever. It's how we are that affects our world to a certain degree, to a very large degree.
Yes, and just be clear about your triggers. Identify them.
Yeah. And I think that's why the work that we all do is so important, that we're willing to work with people. In fact, we draw people to us who have to do with fear in one form or another. And that these are techniques. Marianne, what you offer your people in your academy are techniques of learning breath, of learning orderliness, of learning meditative walking, of becoming more aware. Veronika, you with horses, how do you have one hand on the horse and the other one is on the brush, or you have one hand on the horse and the other is on your heart, or you're teaching them
Connecting
ways that they can deal when they feel the fear coming up. And as long as they remember to breathe long enough to use their techniques, later they can hold their hand on their heart and remember what it's like to have their hand on the horse. You know, these are techniques. I'm interested in helping people work with this and not just defining what the arenas are. What can we do about it? I'm very pragmatic. And these are ways of dealing with it. And Dennis, your reassurance of people who are at the beginning stages of developing a project that you feel has value, since you judge where the money's going to go, of reassuring them, yes, this particular direction that you're working on is something that is viable. You're helping them to come back to themselves and say, yes, what I do has value. I have value. My ideas have value, and there are things that can then be supported. So we're all working in this dimension. I just want people listening here to know there are things that you can do if you are feeling anxiety or fear or phobia or fear of the future or fear of men or fear of women or of dogs, that there are things you can do about it. It all has to do with coming back to who we are and what we send out energetically into the world. It's the core of the work that Marianne, you do, and Veronika, you also, and myself also.
I want to give you another example of a vet's life. You know, if you work with animals, sooner or later you will get bitten because you're not always in a coherent state. If you have anxiety in the moment you get bitten, the wound will get infected, it will swell, and it will need a week to 10 days to heal. If you get bitten and you have no anxiety in that moment, the wound will not be infected and heal within a day.
Still, if you get bitten by a viper, Marianne, I want you to go to a doctor, okay?
I probably will drive down to the pharmacy and get myself a serum and inject it myself.
Okay.
That will probably happen.
I mean, we have to use our heads with what we're doing also. That's
but, you know, I won't get afraid. I won't dramatize, and it won't take much.
And things will be better because of that. I understand. But we still have to use this bump between our shoulder blades. That's what the dear Lord, however you see the dear Lord, to us for. And just trusting on that is also not.
You know, the last time a black widow did bite me, you know what I did do? I did take the phone and phone Priya and ask her for a homeopathic remedy.
Fine.
She prescribed it. I did take it. The next day it was gone.
That's true. We just need to not be ridiculous and not look for help and say, if I'm within myself, everything will be fine. Priya could give you good advice.
I could have gone in trance for a few hours and healed myself, but I couldn't do it at the moment.
Yeah, and really to stay calm, huh? And to stay calm. The last time a Scorpio bit me, I need to stay calm, because if I don't stay calm, the poison goes in my blood so much more quickly, and I need to stay calm. Yeah.
But stay calm, take a homeopathic remedy, all will be fine.
You need to know the techniques of how you calm yourself. And those are the learning effects that people who do live in fear can learn. These are learnable things.
Yeah.
So anyone who's listening to this, who suffers from high-level anxiety or feels held back in their lives, please do know. Reach out, find methods that are in tune with who you are. There are ways to work with this. Marianne has an entire academy based on that. Veronika has an entire place in Tobago that works with people who suffer from this. There are things you can do. Please reach out.
And you can call a homeopath as well. He will help too. Sadly, our homeopaths have not been here today. They will be here another time. My dear colleagues, I thank you so much for attending the live talk today. It was so great having you here. Anything that you think we missed out on, which still should be mentioned, or are we clear and ready to go?
But there's no time.
We will meet in 4 weeks again.
Thank you. Great. All of you for your contributions, ideas, and for the fact that we're working together here to offer those who are listening options for what they can do with the problems that they're facing.
Yeah. Yes, and we are talking from 3 continents now. This is so great.
Sure.
Yeah. It was wonderful to be with all of you guys. Let's stay courageous, calm, and connected until in a month.
Thank you. Yes. Veronika, hit a horse for me. I love horses. I grew up with them.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye, people. Bye-bye.
Nice time.
Nice time.